The day had seemed endless, one long, infinite loop of maddening doldrum that threatened to consume my brain. The car trip home only added to the stagnation, trapped in bumper-to-bumper traffic like overcrowded bullets in a full clip. I would continue the metaphor and say that I was loaded into the chamber and ready to fire, but the feeling in my gut was telling me that I was a gun ready to fire a bullet of my own, and the trigger was being squeezed slowly but surely. It was imperative that I get home to a specific room inside of it in particular. Churning, snake-like, slithering in my bowels, sweat dripped from my brow, my blood pressure skyrocketed. Home was screaming my name in a volume to match my internal shrieks. I barely parked the car before I was sprinting over the driveway, frantic and maniacal, fumbling with my keys much in the same way Cardi B fumbles to speak and be understood by anyone with more than 3 brain cells. The unwanted visitor within needed to get out, and the rear exit was the only one available. I had to get inside. The front door didn't stand a chance against my speed. The climb up the stairs led to my true prize. My breaths were labored and strained, but not due to the usual out-of-shape response to any form of exercise. So close now. I couldn't stop the smile from erupting on my face, and I was losing the battle to stop another eruption. Salvation in porcelain. The memory of how I ended up here had left, and all I could think of was to push. The strain was unbearable, the countdown pushing me to the brink of sanity. It took time, of course, but it finally happened. A bomb went off beneath me, threatening to rocket me through the ceiling, but I held on to the seat as tenuously and desperately as an elderly celebrity holds on to relevance. What stretched on for seemingly eternity reached its end in moments, but I felt years older in the aftermath. I am become death, destroyer of toilets. All tension left my body and entered the bowl. There was only one task left. Reaching over, I knew. Terror gripped me in its throes, holding me close and whispering my misfortune in my ear. It didn't need to. I could see clearly. The empty spool mocked me. Peace was replaced with rage.
No!
I was a man with nothing to lose. There was only one thing to do. My other clothes wouldn't flush as easily as the most obvious choice. Goodbye, socks. We hardly knew ye. Have no fear. Your final task would be a disgusting one, but I needed cleansing. And when finished, my cotton brothers, you will have a burial at sea.
How's that for an intro?
The humor's not highbrow enough.
Not highbrow enough, huh? Okay, let's try this.
Okay. That's just weird. You can stop. Just get on with it.
Fine. Okay, fine. Alright. Hello all, and welcome to Gregorious Views, a YouTube channel hosted by a nerd with way too much knowledge and way too much time on his hands. Now that I'm cleaned up and I've gotten a change of socks, let's get this started. Since I basically kicked off this channel with a movie-based video last time, I thought this time I would alternate to one based on a video game. Now, it can't be understated at all how much of a gamer I am. Seriously. For someone who isn't a YouTube gamer and has been doing it for many years, posting videos and reacting to them squealing like babies, over everything that's horror-oriented, or those who get video games sent to them and they don't have to pay anything because they're given stuff for free. Please give me stuff for free eventually. It's kind of ridiculous how gamerish I really am. It's pathetic.
I need help.
Now, I won't give a deep history lesson or anything here, But I've been a gamer since I was very young, introduced to the Sega Genesis by my father. And he was the background of things like, Miss Pac Man and Galaga. You don't know what those games are? You're too young for this channel. Anyway, I got into Sonic the Hedgehog and Aladdin.
Sega Aladdin is and will always be the she.
And only evolved from there, playing or owning most of the consoles since. Seriously, help me. Of course, the irony is, this love for gaming that I had that was stoked by my father was later always used as a means to deride and make fun of me. And honestly, that's the only time you will hear any mention of him in this video and probably any other video after that. Because, life lesson, if you don't have anything nice to say about someone, don't say anything at all. So, like my previous video where I struggled for a while to figure out a starting point, so I went with my favorite horror movie of all time, I kind of struggled again to pick a starting point with video games. So I thought, what's a game that I played a lot since youth? Crap, too many to name. Okay, so then I thought, what's a game that I still revisit out of that list? God, again. So I finally asked myself, what's a game where I loved all of its major components and that I can easily explain why I love it? Still too many to choose from, so I went with one. So I went with Max Payne. Oh my God! No, 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 no. We're not talking about that 2008 movie with old Mocky Mock. Huh? Who? What? Where? Wahlberg. No, not that. That turd should be flushed along with everything else that I left in the toilet in the intro. No, we're talking about the game, obviously. All those questions that I asked myself trying to narrow down a choice for a gaming video fit this game perfectly. And just like a lot of the other games that I really seem to like and can always go back and revisit, this one also happens to be one of my wife's favorites too. What can I say? She has good taste in everything. Except men.
And why wouldn't we love it? Why wouldn't anyone love it? It's a superbly written film noir story with so many threads, numerous epiphanies and betrayals, colorful characters, and John Woo-esque gun battles. I mean, this is the game that pretty much invented bullet time in gaming, a notion popularized by The Matrix in 1999. Released in 2001, Max Payne is a game created by Remedy, known for excellent games that I plan to cover at some point, such as Alan Wake and Control. And it was published by Rockstar Games, known obviously for Grand Theft Auto and the Red Dead series. Max Payne was released on PC, PS2, and Xbox. It's also the first in a trilogy of games centered on this character, but keep in mind, I'm only covering this first game.
Okay, enough chit-chat for now. Anyway, let's get to it, shall we? Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Playing it on a PS5. All this graphical power and this advanced hardware, and I'm playing a 20-year-old game. 2001, 2021. Yeah, my math is right. Aw, happy anniversary, Maxie.
Okay, so let me just say that while not as iconic or memorable as the PlayStation 1 intro, I still love this. All the nostalgia. The old school Rockstar logo. And doesn't this music get you hyped up for a lot of action? And the main theme itself, so brooding. You'll hear it a lot throughout the game, but just know that this is one of my favorite game themes of all time. Alright, enough. Let's do it. But wait, still comic images.
This isn't an action game. There's no shooting, Gregorious. This looks like some kind of non-action game. Adventure game. Adventure games are for nerds.
Like me.
Alright, seriously. For those who are unfamiliar with this game, the story is mainly told through graphic novel panels. Yeah, cool, right? I wasn't a fan of this the first time I played it because I was a CG cutscene nut at that time, but it grew on me. And speaking of story, this game has hands down one of the best stories ever written. I said it. I know many would argue with me on this point.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is the greatest story ever.
Oh, but you haven't played The Last of Us 1 or 2?
But what about Final Fantasy 7?
I'm a huge fan of all those too, trust me. But for some reason, I just love Sam Lake's story in this game. And you know what that means? Story time with Gregorious!
Opening in media res.
So I know many of my older students should know that term, but they're probably looking it up on Google right now as we speak. Or not. Google's both difficult to spell and difficult to use.
We meet Max Payne on the roof of a skyscraper on a winter night in New York. Through flashback, it is explained by Max that he was once a former NYPD cop who lost his family in what seemed a random attack by junkies addicted to a drug called Valkyr. After the tragedy, he joined the DEA and works undercover within the Punchinello crime family to hunt for the source of the drug. After 3 years, his old demons come back to haunt him after his old partner Alex, the only one who knows he's undercover, is killed. Max is framed for the murder, which brings the cops after him, and his police background is ratted out to the mob, forcing him to fight for his life. However, Max isn't someone to be underestimated, and he sets out on a bloody path of vengeance as he shoots his way through an odyssey that sees him taking down numerous enemies, fighting against and joining forces with an assortment of characters ranging from drug kingpins, Russian mafiosos, trained assassins, and government agents, and ultimately learning the terrible truth that the deaths of his wife and child weren't random, all connected to a shadowy plot in which he is now embroiled, one that leads to the most powerful company in New York. I'd love to add more, but this is a tale truly worth exploring and experiencing yourselves. It has so many twists, turns, and grand reveals that it makes all M. Night Shyamalan movies look like Disney Channel originals. It captures the always welcome anti-hero noir feel, gritty and deadpan, and as is characteristic of Remedy, it's very subversive despite being a mostly straightforward action noir. There are countless allusions to the game being a game, to popular movies or stories that influence the story of the game itself, to Norse mythology, and plenty of pop culture references. I love the Twin Peaks references especially, which Remedy and Sam Lake obviously love.
It should be mentioned that the game can be really, really dark at times too. The opening that shows Max's family getting killed in cold blood is pretty disturbing in a non-exploitative way. I think that this is probably the first game that I can think of that I ever saw a dead child depicted, and while it's not as gruesome as it could be, it's still incredibly chilling.
The Iceman cometh!
Oh God, not again! It wasn't even a pun!
And the horrific pain.
No pun intended. Okay, no, that was a pun. That was a pun!
And abuse that Max undergoes can be hard to swallow.
Unlike all the painkillers that Max takes. Yeah, it can be said that Max is something of a chemically dependent character like your old school noir detectives who are usually alcoholics and everything. Max, though, is addicted to painkillers. Get it? His last name's Payne. People are trying to kill him, and he kills painkillers.
Let me explain how that ties into the gameplay and also explain the mechanics by looking at the HUD. In this corner, you can see a little white emblem shaped like Max. You get shot and the white fills up with red. Completely filled, you die. The only way to stave off dying is by taking painkillers. You can only carry up to 8 on normal difficulty. Next to that is an hourglass. This is how you perform bullet time. You can either slow everything down manually or trigger the slow-mo with a dive, and killing opponents is the only way to fill it back up. Your weapon choice and the amount of ammo is in the right corner, and when changing weapons, it brings up your inventory that includes what weapons you have. Truthfully, I love this HUD. Not too intrusive despite being on-screen and taking up some space.
All right. I talked it up enough, and we haven't actually shown much gameplay. You guys just want to see how it plays, right? Right? It's pretty simple, actually. Watch, I'll show you.
Go here. Shoot enemies. Move forward. Examine object for comic book scene. Shoot enemies again. Dodge gunfire and or a grenade. Shoot with style. Replenish ammo. Get painkillers. Heal wounds. Go here. Next chapter. Rinse and repeat.
And that's about it. What? Not interesting enough? Too repetitive and all that? Look, guys, seriously. Call of Duty does the same thing, and they're released annually every year, same gameplay over and over again, different package. Don't get me wrong, I like those too, but there's really not that much of a difference at all. Shut up.
Look, I know. If I only talked about the gameplay and its variety, this video would only be about a minute and a half long. But one thing you should know about me as a gamer, and always remember, if your story is good and the characters are interesting, I'll play it if it's not frustrating or broken. I don't need perfect high-definition graphics either. I like them, obviously. But some of the most memorable games to me don't always have all the best qualities. Kind of like what I said in my previous video on The Thing, squeakers will complain about how this game looks and, in this case, how repetitive it is, and that's fine. Like what you like, and let the old fogies like myself like what they like. I mean, whatever you'd say to me is wrong, but you're free to think what you want, no matter how wrong your opinions are.
Okay, so you may be wondering what I think is so great about this game, and I've got a few points. But before I get to those, let me go into the gameplay a little bit deeper.
Okay, so yeah, it's repetitive in its execution, but Call of Duty, Uncharted, The Last of Us, God of War, on, are all repetitive in some way. What helps the gameplay for me starts with how smooth, for a game of its time, the bullet time worked. There's something so satisfying about pulling off a dive in a room full of gun-toting killers and taking them all down in one go. Or, if you're like me sometimes, diving, landing again, landing again, and diving one more time. Seriously, how Max's health isn't affected by slamming onto the floor, into walls, landing on stairs? But never mind that. Nah, on second thought, I wonder how the mobsters see this cop flopping around like a fish out of water.
Max Payne, I'd send you to sleep with the fishes, but you are one.
Max Payne? More like Bass Payne.
How'd you all get in here? The shooting is done well overall. I kind of found that using the more modern PS5 controller made my aiming a little bit less controlled. But the positive side of that was it gave me more of the frenetic feeling, the adrenaline kick that I needed, and it reminded me of how it was to play this game all those years ago. Because, in all honesty, Max Payne is the game that taught me how to use dual joysticks.
Yeah, it may be hard for the young to believe, but granted, I did get accustomed to one joystick on the Nintendo 64 controller, though apparently I'd been holding it wrong all that time. Why did no one tell me?
You're stupid!
And when I migrated to the PS1, I mainly used the directional buttons. I remembered hating Ape Escape because it made you use both joysticks, but I was childish then. But Max Payne forced me, and while it took time, I think I got the hang of it. As a huge fan of Hong Kong action movies, though, the gameplay nailed that feeling of being a slightly superpowered but definitely desperate hero fighting to the death. I loved it then, and I always will. Now for the voice acting. First off, James McCaffrey's Max is truly inspired. This guy was built to do hard-boiled narration.
Pissing Punchinello off was a dangerous game, but when people get mad, they make mistakes. I should know. That's where I wanted Punchinello, mad enough to trip over his own feet, preferably into a grave.
Of course, that's not him portraying Max physically. That's the game's writer, Sam Lake. McCaffrey would later use his face for Max in Max Payne 3.
But anyway, McCaffrey's voice is so good, I'd honestly love for him to narrate my mundane life. In fact...
Greg brushed his teeth, pressing as hard as he could to remove the plaque from his gums as readily as he wished to remove the darkness of his soul.
Warning! Lowbrow humor!
Greg looked around curiously, trying to see if another soul was near. He had an overwhelming need to vacate his colon of every last inch of gas, its pressure dangerously high, knowing that the sound and odor alone would be more than enough to clear anything living from the surrounding area. He let go of his inhibitions. The sound was of the cheese being cut with a dull, rusty blade, but the relief was sweet, though short-lived. Greg tooted, only to realize with horror that the gaseous fiend brought with it a friend of the liquid variety. Greg struggled with glaring issues relating to his desire to be loved even though he was a complete introvert. He wanted to be liked and cherished, but also enjoyed being a jerk. It was a hypocritical life, to be sure, but one that...
Okay, enough. I get it. It's true, but let's stop, okay?
Okay, so maybe that'd be a bad idea, but McCaffrey is perfect as the world-weary, cynical, and desperately dangerous Max. Anytime I see him or hear him in anything, he is in other Remedy games such as Alan Wake and Control, and I do remember him in the TV show Rescue Me as Tommy Gavin's dead cousin. I can't help it, I always hear Max, and that's not really a bad thing. He's not the only excellent voiced character, though. I personally love Alfred Woden.
Mr. Payne, I would like to introduce you to my colleagues in what we call the Inner Circle.
Nicole Horn.
How sweet. I get to kill two birds with one stone.
And even the obnoxious but somewhat entertaining Vinny Gognitti.
What do you think you're doing? You're a freaking cop. You ain't got squat on us. You can't just come in here waving your piece like it meant something.
The rest of the main characters serve their purposes and are done well. They're appropriately serious, but can also be hammy and over the top, which I like. But I do kind of wish that they had stayed as gritty as possible like they do in Max Payne 2, which overall was a more somber story and presentation. Even the side characters are voiced well, but there are some that kind of aren't, which I'll get to momentarily.
So, with an excellent story, moody music, decent gameplay, and overall good voice acting, are there any weaknesses to be found in Max Payne? Absolutely. So let's start with some easy ones.
The graphics and the repetition. Again, I know that squeakers will talk about how dated everything looks, but what sometimes takes me out of this game is the texture mapping, the same style that we saw in games like GoldenEye 64. It's weirdly hilarious though, especially when the in-game models are in an action scene. Max especially. Kind of makes you wonder what Sam Lake was thinking when he came up with that expression.
Oh, hey Sam, come in please. I'm just going through your notes here. So you're wanting to portray Max in the game? Okay. That's perfectly fine. We're okay with that. Let's just use this as a form of an audition to see if this is okay for the facial scanning and motion capture and all of that. I just want you to make a face, okay? Just one face. So I want you to give me a look that says, "You've killed my family, prepare to die." Now, whenever you're ready, go ahead. Constipation. That's the face you're going with. That's what you're going with. Okay. You think about your family dying. You want to kill the person that killed your family. And your first instinct is, I have to poop, but I can't. Okay. I'm sorry. Just, it's a little odd. Tell you what, okay, let me put myself in your shoes and let me try, okay? So I will think of the same thing that I just told you. My family has been killed. Prepare to die. Oh my God! Brilliant! Brilliant!
Aside from the characters' faces, though, some of the models look or move strangely. I mean, look at these walking animations of these government agents. They look like pimp walks after having a stroke.
Get out!
And then there's this, the box-shaped cars. They look like children's cardboard approximations of what cars look like. As for other weaknesses, how about most of the characters, namely the Italian mobsters who themselves might border on stereotype but no more than a Jersey Shore cast member, have the same voice actors, like Skyrim level, where the same 5 voices voice a town of 50, and there are 20 towns, so you know the voices immediately when you hear them? They are entertaining, though, I'm not gonna lie.
Yo guys, hey, we're getting around, you hear me? What, is this a joke? Hey, anybody, answer me.
Hold on here, give me the detonator.
What are you talking about?
The detonator.
I thought you'd bring it.
You were supposed to bring it.
Yeah, right.
Take vampire movies. Why are they always set in LA or Mexico? They can't even get a tan. If I was a bloodsucker, I'd move to the North Pole. Winter's one long night.
Yeah, and what would you eat? Suck blood from penguins?
Nah, Eskimos, man, Eskimos.
And then there's a mechanic that's present throughout the entire game that probably I personally hate the most. The jumping. Oh my god, the jumping.
Just stop. Okay. 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 All right, you've got this. Okay. Helicopter. No. Fine.
Now again, I would blame the sensitivity of the PS5 controller, but in all fairness, growing up playing this game, the jumping sucked back then too horribly. I remember playing this back when I was in high school, and I fell so many freaking times. This time, though, I maybe fell twice.
And last of all, but certainly not least, while these are appropriate for the game's story, I still hate them with an undying fury. The nightmare levels. And oh my god, when you fall, you don't die. But for the nightmare level later in the game, well, this happens. Every single time you fall, screaming. Thankfully, there are only 2 levels like this in the game. Basically, the game is divided into 3 acts, and at the beginning of Act 2 and the beginning of Act 3, you have little nightmare sequences, and both of these levels culminate in something kind of like this. However, despite these complaints and gripes that I have, they're nothing more than just grievances. There are more pros than cons in the game for me. That's why I still go back and play it, and I still love it, and I can't help but sing its praises highly to anyone that ever asks me about action games or games that they played in their youth.
So to wrap this up, let me say this that I will probably say over and over, surely. Good graphics, good gameplay do not always a great game make. There are many reasons, as I've already told you, that this game resonates with me 20 years after it came out. I do wish that maybe, just maybe, Remedy and Rockstar might could get together, maybe cut a deal and work it out to make a full remaster of Max Payne. I'm talking full graphical overhaul, mouths can move, bullet holes appear on characters like they did in Max Payne 3. All of that just to make it as good as it possibly could be today. But until they decide to do that, if they ever did decide to do it and we're able to work it out, I'll take what I can get. I still love it. I'll still go back and play it. I don't care how archaic how old it comes across. Max Payne has timelessness, especially with the story. It's got so many serious, dark, heavy moments. It's got twists that stick out to you and will never leave you. They never leave me anyway. And yeah, it's got some not so serious moments, and some of that's intentional, and some of it's probably unintentional. But I don't care. This is a great game, and it's a great game to start with, and I'll always love it. Now, yeah, Max Payne 2 and 3 were improvements in the gameplay department, and in some cases to some possibly story department and all that, but I still prefer the original, and I always will. I might do reviews of the other two another time, but for now, we're just going to stick with the first Max Payne, and it has a very special place within the cold, damp remains of my heart. But hey, that's just my view. Anybody notice all the toilet humor this time? Sorry if you're not into that sort of thing. And if you are, cool! You got what you wanted this time. Thank you guys for watching this video, and please make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you're interested in, well, this. Next time, I'm going to move back into the movie realm, but we're going to go past horror, avoid horror for a little bit. And instead, we're going to look at something a little bit different. It is gothic and has its kind of dark tastes that are akin to horror, but here we're going to have a battle between two freaks, some wonderful toys, and we're going to see what conflict was like pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe, where everything was all connected and it became kind of an over-bloated behemoth like it is now, where you see it everywhere. Oh, and by the way, it's DC. Later.
Thank you.